Welcome. We begin by acknowledging a universal truth, the dread that precedes checking your bank balance. That moment, often accompanied by a tightening in the chest or a knot in the stomach, is not merely financial concern, it is a primal psychological response. For many, the fear of the unknown number is so acute that avoidance becomes the primary strategy, leading to a dangerous cycle where financial health deteriorates precisely because we refuse to look at it. We wait until the last possible moment, the bill due date, the overdraft warning, when emotional response is at its peak and rational decision-making is severely compromised. This habit of avoidance, fueled by anxiety, is perhaps the single greatest impediment to achieving financial security. Today, we introduce a powerful, almost counterintuitive technique designed to shatter this avoidance pattern, the 5-second rule for checking your bank balance. This isn't just about reviewing numbers, it's about recalibrating your emotional response to your finances, integrating observation into your daily life without inviting fear.
To understand the solution, we must first analyze the anxiety loop. When you anticipate checking your balance, your brain often defaults to catastrophic thinking. Your limbic system, the seat of emotion, hijacks the prefrontal cortex, the center for logical thought. This leads to what behavioral economists call ostrich effect behavior, burying one's head in the sand to avoid negative information. The irony is that avoidance intensifies the anxiety. Every day you postpone the check, the perceived financial threat grows exponentially larger in your mind. The moment you finally do look, the emotional shock is magnified, confirming the subconscious belief that checking the balance is an inherently painful experience. The 5-second rule directly targets this neural pathway of avoidance. It forces a rapid, decisive action that bypasses the anxiety's incubation period, effectively interrupting the psychological momentum that fear uses to build paralysis. We must learn to treat the financial check as a neutral data retrieval exercise, not an emotional verdict on our self-worth.
The 5-second rule, adapted from concepts of motivational psychology, is elegantly simple. The moment the impulse hits you to check your balance, or the moment you decide to integrate it into your morning ritual, you commit to the action and perform it within 5 seconds. You open the app, look at the primary balance, and then close it. The critical distinction here is the discipline of constraint. You are not allowed to analyze, scroll, or emotionally react. The purpose of this initial high-speed interaction is solely reconnaissance. By performing the task rapidly, we prevent the rationalizing mind from manufacturing reasons to delay, and we minimize the time available for anxiety to flood the system. This practice desensitizes the brain to the action of opening the app. Over time, the subconscious mind learns that opening the banking app is not a signal for danger, but rather a brief, neutral interaction, resetting the emotional thermostat surrounding your finances. The brevity is the psychological shield.
Let's detail the mechanism of the rule. What precisely constitutes the 5 seconds? Step 1. Launch the application. Step 2. Locate the primary checking or savings balance. Step 3. Allow your eyes to register the number. Crucially, the process ends there. You are not permitted to review recent transactions, calculate pending bills, or cross-reference budgets. If you see a surprisingly low number, you must resist the impulse to panic. If you see a surprisingly high number, you must resist the impulse to start planning frivolous expenditures. The goal is pure, objective, instantaneous observation, similar to checking the time or the weather. Think of yourself as a financial journalist recording a single headline data point. We are training the brain to separate the act of data retrieval from the act of analysis and subsequent emotional reaction. Analysis is critical, but it requires dedicated time, usually later in the day, when you are settled and prepared to engage proactively, not reactively. The 5 seconds are strictly for awareness, establishing a baseline of truth.
For this habit to solidify, integration into a fixed daily routine is essential. We recommend pairing the 5-second rule with an existing non-negotiable habit, a technique known as habit stacking. For instance, immediately after brushing your teeth, or while waiting for your morning coffee to brew. Consistency is key to desensitization. Choose a time when you are least likely to be interrupted, and ideally, a moment when your general stress levels are low, often first thing in the morning before the day's pressures mount. By checking the balance early, you inoculate yourself against the stress of the unknown throughout the rest of the day. You've faced the reality, regardless of how challenging it might be, and you can now proceed with informed awareness.
This tiny victory of decisive action sets a positive tone, replacing the lingering dread with foundational financial truth. Even if the numbers are uncomfortable, knowing the truth removes the crippling weight of speculation and fear, liberating cognitive resources for problem solving.
The power of this habit lies in its emphasis on data, not judgment. When we look at our finances, we often apply a highly critical filter, judging past spending decisions or fearing future inability to pay. This moralizing of money is detrimental. The balance displayed on your screen is not a score of your worth as an individual. It is simply a data point, a measurement of liquidity at a specific moment in time. The 5-second rule trains us to adopt a professional, detached viewpoint. By limiting the interaction time, we prevent the internal narrative, the voice of self-criticism or panic, from gaining traction. We observe the facts unemotionally, allowing the prefrontal cortex to maintain control. When the anxiety inevitably surfaces, perhaps after the 5 seconds are complete, you can mentally label it. That is anxiety about the balance. The data has been retrieved. This separation allows you to move forward without being paralyzed by the emotional residue of the check itself. This is the definition of financial mindfulness in practice.
From a physiological perspective, this micro-habit offers tangible benefits. Financial stress is a major contributor to elevated cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone. Chronic elevation of cortisol is linked to sleep disturbances, impaired immunity, and long-term health issues. The avoidance cycle feeds this cortisol release, creating persistent low-level stress. By replacing avoidance with decisive daily action, even a brief one, we signal to our nervous system that the threat is manageable. This action acts as a small, consistent dose of exposure therapy. Instead of experiencing a massive, paralyzing cortisol spike once a week when we finally check, we introduce a minimal, manageable release of stress hormones daily, followed immediately by the relief of having completed the necessary task. Over time, the physiological response to checking the balance fundamentally changes from a danger signal to a neutral procedural task, leading to a measurable reduction in chronic financial stress and improved overall mental clarity.
The 5-second rule is not a substitute for comprehensive financial planning. It is the essential bridge to get you there. It allows for the transition from reaction to proactivity. Once you have established the daily awareness baseline, you can then schedule dedicated financial planning sessions, perhaps 15 minutes once a week, where the analysis and decision-making occurs. Crucially, in this longer session, you are starting from a place of informed calm, not reactionary panic. You already know the numbers. The weekly session can focus on strategizing, budgeting, and forecasting, utilizing the factual data gathered during the daily 5-second checks. If the balance is low, the planning session allows you to calmly identify actionable steps, such as cutting specific expenses or increasing income streams. If the balance is strong, you focus on optimization, like increasing investments or contributing to savings. The daily micro-habit ensures you never face the weekly macro session unprepared.
Consider the scenario of a sudden, unplanned expense, a car repair or a veterinary bill. Without the daily 5-second rule practice, such an event often triggers intense fear because the individual hasn't truly known their cash position for days or weeks. The expense hits an already stressed, uninformed mind, leading to poor choices like high-interest loans. Conversely, the individual practicing the daily habit is never truly surprised by their foundational balance. They are aware of the baseline. When the emergency arises, they can quickly revert to the factual data point they saw that morning. This established calm allows them to pivot immediately to solution-oriented thinking. I know my balance is X. This repair costs Y. Therefore, my options are A, B, or C. The emotional paralysis is minimized because the fundamental truth of the financial situation has been regularly reinforced. This is how the rule translates into genuine financial resilience. Not just knowing the numbers, but integrating them into a stable emotional framework.
The long-term impact of adopting this daily micro-habit extends far beyond managing anxiety. It cultivates financial consistency and intrinsic honesty. When you consistently acknowledge your current financial reality, you build a powerful feedback loop. You become acutely aware of how yesterday's spending impacts today's numbers. This daily awareness naturally leads to subtle, positive behavioral shifts without the need for restrictive, anxiety-inducing budgeting apps. Over months, this consistency transforms into financial self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to manage your financial life effectively. Instead of feeling like a victim of external financial forces, you become the authoritative director of your money. This disciplined, daily engagement replaces reactive dread with proactive mastery, establishing a foundation of trust between you and your money management systems, which is paramount for achieving complex, long-term goals like saving for retirement or a major purchase. While simple, the 5-second rule is not without its pitfalls. The primary challenge is resisting the temptation to scroll. In today's digital environment, checking a balance often leads instantaneously to checking notifications, reviewing credit card rewards, or scrolling through transaction history. This is where the rule breaks down, transforming the neutral observation into an analytical session fraught with potential anxiety. To troubleshoot this, physically put the phone face down immediately after the 5 seconds are up. If you are prone to checking multiple accounts, limit the 5-second check to only the primary daily spending account initially, introducing secondary accounts only once the primary habit is solid. Another potential pitfall is using the 5-second check as a form of self-punishment on difficult financial days. If you find yourself using it aggressively or judgmentally, step back and remind yourself, the purpose is objective data retrieval, not emotional interrogation. Refocus on the disciplined speed and neutrality. In summary, the 5-second rule for checking your bank balance is a vital tool for achieving financial peace. It is the practice of daily objective awareness that disarms the crippling force of financial anxiety. Start today by choosing a single account and integrating this rapid check into your existing morning routine. Commit to the 5 seconds of simple, non-judgmental observation. By training your brain to approach money management with decisive action and emotional neutrality, you move from living in fear of the unknown to operating within the confidence of reality. This small habit will profoundly shift your relationship with money, paving the way for sustainable financial health and resilience. Thank you for watching and investing in your financial well-being. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on building a better financial mindset and mastering your daily